Well, hey there. I have been meaning to do this for some time. MidJourney is something I use on my TikTok. If you go to tiktok.com/stoicism pod, you can see how I use it. I use that in conjunction with a tool called CapCut to create pretty much every single TikTok video I make. I also use it in illustrations for blog entries and, in instances where I want some really original artwork for like a blog post or whatever I'm working on, and I don't want to pay $60 to license a single illustration from any of those places where you can do that sort of thing, because I write a lot and I don't necessarily have the budget to keep up with how much I write, and I create a lot of content online. So for the same reason, having AI art is pretty cool. Now, you've probably heard of MidJourney, obviously, or you wouldn't be here watching this video, but it may be intimidating to you to think about, well, hey, this looks really cool. I don't know how to use it. I'm not really technical. And when you go to midjourney.com, what you see is this. And so for that reason, it can be even more intimidating. This looks like you're going to get a virus on your computer. You open this and you're like, oh shit, I need to close this immediately. This is terrifying. So I understand that, and I'm making this video to try to help you approach this easily. It is very easy to use. Once you finish this video, which I hope will be no longer than 15 minutes, I hope you will have everything you need to start using MidJourney and a comfortability with the process of using it that will encourage you to learn more. This is not a masterclass. This is intended for people who have never touched this but see what it can do and want to start messing around with it. So with that, I will go back to this really crazy looking screen. I will turn my camera on and put myself somewhere down here or up here. Yeah, sure, that looks good. Okay, so this is MidJourney. Here's what you need to use MidJourney. You need a Discord account. So if you don't have a Discord account, well, hey, that's easy. You just go to discord.com and you create an account if you don't have one. It's free. The only place you can use Discord, or rather MidJourney, as far as I'm aware, is from a Discord channel. Now, you could use it by joining the MidJourney Discord, but that place is so busy that it's hard to really do anything in it. It seems like hundreds of channels, thousands of people, and it's hard to get any work done. You need kind of a quiet place to do your own work. So if you create your own Discord account, you can then set up your own free Discord server, and then through the process of inviting the MidJourney bot to your Discord server, which has gotten quite a bit easier than it used to be, at this point, you can just go into your channel management, I think, and invite. So, for example, I have MidJourney with friends. If you'd like to be invited to this, just leave a comment. Let me know. I'm happy to invite you. Everybody has their own private channel, so I can see everybody's artwork, but no one else can see anyone else's artwork. It's just because I'm the admin. And if you want to create your own server, you can figure out how to do that through some other video. But once you have it, you can go to the app directory and you can invite the MidJourney bot to your server. So that's how easy it is to set up your own server and to invite MidJourney to your server so that you can talk to it and use it in a quiet place that doesn't have thousands of users in it. Okay, so with that said, once you have a Discord account, you sign in to MidJourney by going to midjourney.com, clicking sign in, and coming down here to sign in. Usually it will prompt you automatically, but whatever. It'll take you to this screen. It'll ask you to authorize your Discord account with MidJourney, to which you will say yes. So now you have a MidJourney account connected to your Discord account. That's all the setup that's required. Okay, we haven't spent a single dime yet. Speaking of spending dimes, let's click on Purchase Plan, and we see that MidJourney's free. You don't have to pay for it. But if you're going to use it a lot, like if you're going to create more than a certain amount of images a month, if you're really going to use this, I would recommend, paying $10 because you will get capped. I can talk a little bit maybe later about what capped means. But if you're just messing around and creating a couple images a day every month, then you probably will never have to pay for MidJourney. I currently pay, I think $10 is my active one. Some months I have to upgrade to $30 because I really use this a lot. I'm probably generating 30 to 50 images a day, and that puts me in the $30 a month range. But that might not be you. There are also enterprise plans. I've never needed that, but maybe you will. Who knows? Maybe you're a big company and you've got a whole team of people who want to use this to create, company art resources or something. I have no idea. Maybe you're creating a book and you need this kind of licensing, enterprise commercial terms. You can look at all these FAQs and kind of figure out the licensing on your own. My understanding is if you're not using this for profit, everything is yours to use in any capacity you like. It's all open source. It's all public domain. If you create an image, someone else can use it. You can use it. And it's all listed inside of your profile. As you start creating things, you'll get a profile that'll begin to fill up with all the things you've made, or rather all the things you've created in the past. So anyone can see this. This is all public. We'll come back to this in a minute. So now that you've got a free Discord account and a free MidJourney account, you can jump into your Discord server and you can begin using the bot. And the way you use the bot is you type /imagine, that's the switch or the command, and then you type a prompt. And here's the anatomy of the prompt. The first thing that you want to do is type kind of what you want. So I want a cowboy sitting at a bar, or let's say in a bar. And then I'm going to hit comma because I want to add some details to this. I want to say, 4K. And then I want to say 8K. And these are all kind of hints to the AI to understand what kind of quality image I'm going for, what kind of details in the image I'm going for. So I'm adding, let's say, creative context to what I'm asking it to make. So I'm saying I want it to be 4K. I want it to be 8K. Now that doesn't mean it's going to be 4K or 8K. It just means that it's going to try to interpret what you mean by 4K or 8K by querying the web or turning to whatever knowledge base it has to understand those terms. And it's going to try to create something that is reflective of these extra things you're giving it. So I'm going to say 4K, 8K. I'm going to say futuristic. Then I'm going to say futuristic Western. I'm going to say highly detailed. I'm going to say, let's say, hyper realism, and I'll also say ray tracing, which is, you can Google what that means. It has something to do with the kind of lighting, how light is treated in the image. And then I'm going to say dramatic lighting. Now, at the end of this, I'm going to add some additional final commands. So this is what I'm asking it to make. I'm asking it to make a cowboy sitting in a bar. And when it makes that, I want it to consider the terms 4K, 8K, futuristic Western, et cetera, I'm also maybe going to add Unreal Engine 5 and Octane Render. And these are just rendering engines, so Octane Render. And so I'm just saying, look, I want something that looks like it's really highly polished. That's what I want. And all of these words are suggesting that that's what I want. Now I'm going to add some final switches, I guess I'll call it. I shouldn't call them a switch. I'll say, I'll ask it to have some attributes. One of those attributes will be --s, and this stands for stylization or stylize. And it's almost like saying, hey, I want you to make something a little less abstract, Mr. MidJourney or Mrs. MidJourney AI, and I want you to be comfortable kind of putting your own spin on it and making it, having some artistic license with it, I guess. And I'm going to say S3500, --S space 3500. Now, the values for the S variable can go from, I want to say, I think they work in 50 increments. So you can do like 650 to 700, 750, et cetera. And I think it maxes out at 10,000. I always use 3500. I'm also going to add the switch, or rather the variable --Q space 2.5. This is a quality variable, so I'm saying I want the quality of the render, of the initial render, and you'll understand what initial render means in a minute, to be a little bit higher than what your normal is, which is 0. This will range from 0 to 5. If I said Q5, it'd be the highest initial render that MidJourney is capable of, and it would also increase the render time of the original 4 images, which again will make sense in a minute. I like to stick with Q 2.5. And then you can say --AR, which means aspect ratio, and then you can give it an aspect ratio. Now, if you don't use any of these switches or any of these variables, that's fine. And if you don't use the --AR, let's say 16:9 is the aspect ratio I want. If you don't use this, it's going to assume a 1:1 or a square aspect ratio. Whether you want that or whether you don't, you can put it there, you cannot put it there. If you're creating something for social graph, like a blog, the blog preview image or whatever, then you probably want 16:9. And you can do some research on what aspect ratios you can use. There are some aspect ratios that it won't support, but I know it uses like 4:3 and 16:9 and 9:16. 9:16 is what you would use for, TikTok stories or Facebook stories or whatever they are. And you understand it now, so I won't keep talking about aspect ratio. I almost am always, in almost every render, I'm using at least these 2 switches, variables. Sorry, I keep saying switches. I also like to add --video. I'll go over what --video does in a minute, but we'll do that, in a minute. So now I'm just going to hit enter. Now this initial render, if I didn't hit Q 2.5, would probably take less than a minute. But because I've used the variable Q 2.5, I've increased the quality of the initial 4x4 render, which again will make sense in a second. It might take a little longer than that depending on how busy the server is, but it's a good expectation that every query you put to the AI is going to take about 60 seconds. If the servers are busy, it will take longer. If the servers are really not busy, it won't take as long. And you get a little progress indicator here of how done it is or isn't. So we can see that there are 4 images beginning to form. This is a 4x4. It's going out and it's saying, okay, I'm going to render things, but I'm not going to render one thing. I'm going to render you 4 options. And we're going to see which of these 4 options you like the most. Now, it doesn't always do a great job on the first pass. You might not like any of these 4 options. And if that's the case, then you would repeat this query, which you can do by just hitting the up arrow key in Discord, and it will repeat the previous command. But we'll give it a second here and see what it comes up with. So it's almost done. 73, 70 should be done here any second. And if we click on this at any stage, we can kind of see where it's going. So there's no cowboy in this one. There's a cowboy that looks like it's just a cowboy hat on a bottle. So we're probably not going to go with this one. This one looks like it's shaping up to be the best one because it seems like we've got a cowboy here in some way, sitting in the middle of the bar, standing in the middle of the bar. So we will let it finish, which it should do in just another few seconds. And again, you can click on this preview at any number of percentages as it progresses to kind of see in what direction it's going. Here's the final one. And of course, the one that looks the best is the one that actually has a cowboy in it, which is number 2. Now, these are labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. So quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, quadrant 4. Now, you're presented with some options here. Upscale and version. I think it stands for version. 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is 3, 4 is 4. If you upscale 1, it means it's going to make it physically bigger and it's going to add some detail. If you click version 1, it means it's going to take this first quadrant and it's going to create 4 additional versions of that based on that one. Now, since we've only got one that actually has a cowboy in it, for shits and giggles, I'm going to go ahead and version number 2. When I do that, it's going to take number 2, and it's going to, a bit more quickly than it did the first time, create another 4x4 based on that one. So maybe we'll get another cowboy in the ones that it spits out next, or maybe we won't. And it looks like we won't. Like I said, it doesn't always do exactly what you want it to do, which is part of the fun and I think part of the art of learning how to query better. So ultimately, it didn't add any more cowboys, so I'm just going to go ahead and upscale number 2 from the initial. And here, because I want to get rid of this one and it's not really useful to me, I'm going to hit the reaction, and I'm going to hit the red X, and then I'll get rid of that from my channel so I don't have to look at it. So I'm going to upsample 2. The upsampling is pretty quick. This shouldn't take more than a minute. But again, it's good to keep in mind that pretty much everything you ask it to do, if you plan in your head that it's going to take a minute for it to do that thing, I think that's a pretty reasonable expectation. So you can see it jump from 7 to 24. It'll probably jump to 50 or 60 next. Of course, I'll be wrong now that I've said that. Jumps to 47. And we can see that our cowboy is becoming a little bit more detailed. It's a little bit more obvious that there's a cowboy in this picture, that there's a person in this picture, there's people. Pretty much everything that MidJourney creates in the first 4 and in the initial upsample is very what is referred to as the uncanny valley. This doesn't, if you really look at the details, these aren't bottles. These are just things that are colored in a certain way, cast in a certain light, shaped a certain way that makes you think they're bottles, but if you really examine them up close, they're really more like smudges. So part of the amazing part of MidJourney is that it's not drawing anything like what you're telling it to. It's compiling an image that somehow, without any single part of it being exactly what you want, winds up looking something like what you want. So here we've got it scaled to 100%, and we've got this very uncanny valley look. Now this is pretty cool. Some people think this is enough. They like this gritty look, and sometimes I like this gritty look as well, and I'll use an image like this. Also, if we click Open Original, it'll take us to the actual image here. It's this big, and it looks pretty good. If you like it like that, you can click Upscale to Max. And when you upscale it to max, it's not going to do too much to improve the quality of it, but it's going to physically make it larger. So as you can see here, this is as big as this image is. Once this upscale is done, and the upscaling, again, everything you ask it to do is about a minute. So I know that I'm talking a lot, but that's kind of so I don't have to cut this video into to save you watching this percentage thing. But as this upscales, it's going to add a little bit of detail, and it's going to increase the physical size. Now, I think the largest that the images can currently get are kind of like 3K. So I think this will probably be like 3,000 by 3,000 roughly, but we'll see in a minute when it's finished. You are not going to get true 4K or 8K images out of MidJourney yet. I don't know if the enterprise version of MidJourney for $600 a month gives you something that the rest of us don't have, but I'm sure in due time, because MidJourney is only a year, maybe 2 years old, I think. I've only known about it for maybe 8 months, certainly less than a year. It has come a long way in the short amount of time that it's been around. So if it's this good a year or two in, imagine what it's going to be like in 3 more years. The ability to generate 8K and 4K, all that stuff, is probably gonna happen pretty quick. Now, I used the variable video here, and I said I would tell you what that was for. Whenever you append -- video to a query, if you react to that when it's finished processing and hit the email button icon, it will send you in your DMs all of the individual images and a nice little video of the composition process, which you can export from Discord and share if you wanted to. So that's pretty cool to see it happen fast like that. At the moment, it seems to only provide video for the 4K, or rather for the 4x4, so you can't you can't see the one image you choose being rendered completely from start to finish. That'll be cool. Maybe they'll add that someday. But that's a neat little feature. So now we've got a completely upsampled version of the art that we've quote unquote created here. So if I click this and I click Open Original, comparing it to the size of this one, we can see that it's got some more clarity and detail, and it's quite a bit larger. And if I try to see how big this image is, let's go ahead and just save it on the desktop and then show in Finder. And I try to see how big this square image is. I can see that it is 1600 by 1600. So that's as big as this particular image got. So keep that in mind, 1600, 1600, or 1664 by 1664. That is not fit for print, right? We couldn't print this and have it look very good. But you could definitely use this online. It looks pretty good on the screen. Okay, so let's say we didn't, or we weren't happy necessarily with the grittiness and almost like kind of like the painted canvas look that this has. We wanted it to look a little bit more polished, a little bit more finished, a little less uncanny valley, and a little more actual art. Instead of hitting upscale to max, we will hit remaster. Now, I am not entirely sure what in the world remaster is doing when it does this, but I almost always start with a query like this, with these additional variables at the end, and I'm almost always, when I decide on my 4x4, which one I upsample, I always hit remaster. Like 90% of the time, I'm rarely happy with what spits out initially. I like a more polished look, and maybe you would like a more polished look as well. So when you hit remaster, again, I'm not sure exactly what it's doing, but the AI seems to understand that you want something that looks more like a traditional finished piece of rendered artwork, whatever that might mean. And so it's going to spit two options back at you. And now we can see that this option here, this one's got a couple people in it. This one just has one cowboy in it. And look how less of the uncanny valley is present. This looks a lot smoother. So I like number 2. I'm going to upsample 2. Now, when you upsample from a remaster, so I've remastered, these are my 2 results, I'm upsampling option number 2. Notice I don't get 4, I just get 2. The size that it spits out from the upsample is, if I'm not mistaken, the largest size you can get. So we're going to watch this upsample happen. And like I said, if I respond from here with, let's say, the video, maybe something's changed and I'll learn right now, but if I respond to that one with an envelope, I'll get a message. But I don't think it's just going to be, oh, look at this. It does have the render for the single panel. That's great. That's new. I didn't know that they had added that, so that's pretty cool. Let's see what that looks like in full screen. Restart that. Oh, so it's taking it from before the upsampling to max, and not actually the very beginning. Okay, well, that's still pretty cool. Anyway, there's that. Okay, so we've asked it now to upsample that one we really liked, and what we have when we're done is this. Now, I think that's a little bigger. See how much smoother it is? There's almost kind of like a smearing, less like paint on a canvas, and just a little smoother, a little cleaner. Now, there's still some uncanny valley going on. This is clearly not a cowboy. This guy doesn't even have a face, right? But using this image, it's communicated what it is. I think we even have a TV here in this cowboy bar. I think that's what this is supposed to be, or maybe it's a window. But if I save this image and I go to see how big this is, I think this will be slightly larger than the 1600 by 1600. Show in Finder. Let's see how big this guy is. It should be a little bigger because notice that this one is 2.2 megs and this one is 3.6 megs, so it should be quite a bit larger physically, unless it's just the detail increasing the size. So this one here is 2048 by 2048. I believe that this is technically 2K, if you wanted to call it that. This, I think, is as large as you can get something. So this would be appropriate for, like, if you wanted to make podcast cover art. Technically, I would suggest 3000 by 3000, as would Apple and any of the other publishers, but the minimum is 1400 by 1400, and so this would be okay to use for podcast art if you wanted to use it for that reason. And then that's really it. If you want to save the image, you can just open Original, right-click, and save the image. Now, if you want to see a history of the things you've created, you can click the Web button that will appear below a final render, and it will take you to it. You have to wait a minute after a render because it won't necessarily immediately publish to your profile in MidJourney. It could take like a minute or two. But if you go to your home profile, you can see a collection, as I kind of stated before when we started, of all the things that you've made. This is sometimes slow to render, slow to populate, but here you can see some things I've made recently, some patterns I'm playing around with. I do a lot of work in Stoicism. If you follow the channel, you know that. So some of these images you may even recognize from me using in social. Here I was messing around with faces. Kind of cool stuff, right? Wild to think that this is made by an AI. I mean, this one's pretty realistic, right? Pretty cool. That looks like it could be out of a book from, the 1900s or something. Some classic illustrator. So pretty cool stuff. Now, another thing that's cool about this kind of profile page or this, I don't know, the platform side of Discord, or not Discord, but MidJourney, is you can see a community feed. So this is everybody's work. And if it's really good, it'll get featured on the community feed. Now, like I said, this will take a little bit to populate. The busier the servers are and the more work they're doing, because sometimes they're doing work on servers and stuff, so things won't always be fast. I'll give this page a refresh and maybe we can get it to... Of course, the second I hit refresh, it populated. There we go. So we can see some things that other people have done. This is pretty cool. Look at this giant cat. And the cool thing about this is when you click on any of these, if you're looking for inspiration, well, it'll show you a couple of things. It'll show you the parent 4x4 that resulted in this. So here I can open the parent. And when I open the parent of this image, if I click it again, I should be able to click it. Sometimes this is a little buggy, but anyway, what you can do is you can hit these three dots and you can copy the full command or the prompt. Now the difference between the full command and the prompt, oh, here we go. Great. It finally took us here. So this is the original image, right? If I click here, I can say, all right, let me copy the full command because I really like this. This is cool. I want to make my own version of this. So I can come, and by the way, no MidJourney image is ever the same twice. It doesn't work that way. So I can come back here and I can say, okay, I'm going to copy that command. I'm going to type imagine, and then I'm going to hit Control V, and I can see the exact command that they used. I have no idea why I don't know what the chaos 100 switch is or variable is, but that's crazy. I don't know what that means, but I will let it run exactly as they let it run. I'll hit enter and we'll see what it makes. This is a great place to go to for inspiration. So you could search, maybe you're creating something, maybe you're creating something in Stoicism, as I often do. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised to see some of my images show up here because I don't know how many people are using that particular word. But it will return any images whose prompts had the word Stoicism in it. So we'll give that a second to populate. And we can come back here and we can see that it's beginning to render our 4x4. And if we wanted to change this a bit, we could, holding pistachios, I don't even, who came up with this? This is wild. But there you go. It's starting to render a 4x4. Still nothing showing up here. MidJourney is free, tons of servers, tons of use. So, you can expect some things to go slow sometimes. It is free after all. So it's tough to demand too much from a free thing this cool. But here's our 4x4. This is what it winds up looking like. And I think number 4 is pretty cool. So let's upsample 4 and see where that gets us. No jobs found with the current filter. So let's go to, top. Or maybe we'll say philosophy. Or maybe we'll say sword. That's probably something people are using a lot of. So we'll query that. We can see here that our pistachio-eating fat cat with chaos 100 attached, I don't even know what that means, is beginning to take shape. This is pretty cool. This is still taking forever. But when the community feed is running, let's say, more quickly than it's running today, it's a great place to go to look at other people's queries, to find pictures that use a keyword you're interested in using, and to see how they got what they got and what they got from what they used. So it can be a good way to kind of jumpstart your ideas. That's really the greatest thing about AI art in general, but MidJourney specifically, is that as artists, if you view yourself as an artist, I don't particularly view myself as one, but as an artist, you are limited in your creativity to the sum total of your experiences, right? You have to come up with the creative thing, and you can only come up with a creative thing that you're capable of coming up with. But when you use a tool like this, and especially when you're trying to get ideas or you don't have a fully fleshed out idea, you can use this to create ideas you couldn't have possibly come up with. And if you're a formal artist, this is a great way, I think, to maybe you would have thought, you would have never thought of this. But when you see it, you're like, oh, I now have a new piece of information in my experience, which is this random query that I've created with AI art. And now I can go back to my canvas and my paint, and I have a new idea based off of this. So it's like a way of expanding our creative limits. So this is pretty cool. I'll go ahead and do. Oh, this actually didn't do. Okay, so this didn't give us it gave us this switch. Some of these switches, if you use them, I don't know what the V4 switch is, but some of them result in an inability to use certain commands afterwards, like remaster, for example. I don't completely understand that. I've only been using MidJourney for a few months myself, so like 6 or so months. So I don't know everything, but I think after God, I hope this hasn't been too long, but I hope after this tutorial, you've learned some things, or rather enough things to start diving into MidJourney yourself and kind of, getting into the nitty-gritty kitty of MidJourney. So, hey, I hope this has been helpful. And if it hasn't been, hey, it was free. Now there's 2 pictures of my face. And go out there and start, have some fun. Try MidJourney. It's cool. Hope this was helpful. Take care.